Welcome back to Vision in the Valley. I am still ill, so please excuse the raspiness in my voice. I wanted to start off by giving a public service announcement today. I got a little rah-rah in me, y'all. Actually, I got a lot of rah-rah in me. Now, I know that you all have heard the softer side of me, and for the most part, that is me. That is true. I love the Lord, and I'm always happy to share that. I mentioned in the last episode that when my assignment is complete, both in the natural and the spiritual sense, I want to be sure that I worked as hard for the Lord as I did for my own brand or the companies that I worked for. I want to be pleasing in God's eyes. I want to work with the same spirit of excellence in all that I do for Him. And I know that I cannot be depleted, exhausted, or spent. I was concerned about relaying my passion for the Lord or the spirit in which I work for Him properly, because if this is not your space today, it may seem like it's too much. And I totally get that, because this wasn't the space that I always inhabited either. It was an evolution. I called it elevation in the last episode, because this rah-rah I speak of is that go hard, that let's get it mentality. It's who I am. It's who I've always been. And I've applied this to all aspects of my life. And this would unfortunately include my dry bones season, my corporate days, and even, or I should say, especially now, I don't do anything just a little bit. I have a natural desire to do it the best. Now, I don't mean the best that's ever been done. I don't even worry about that. I just do it the best that I can do. Now, I know that sounds good, but I'm telling you that it also applies to the worst part of me. So how do I say this? How do I say this in one episode? When I shifted from married life, I didn't really know my place in the world. I'd been a wife and a mother my entire adulthood. So that evolution was an uncomfortable stretch for me. And almost everything seemed like it could be an option. I say that hoping that you realize that I don't mean everything. But I did find myself in relationships that I never expected to be in. And I found myself in jobs that I never imagined for myself. So here's a story. After I left the corporate arena, I was using the money I pulled from my 401k to live, which was already risky to begin with. But there was so much going on in my life during that time that all I can think of was just the retreat part of it. The short part of the story, if I can make this short at all, is that I had eventually met a guy that was a promoter, among other things. And I shared with him my event planning business, which I'd started in 1998. As a matter of fact, the year that my caboose, Alyssa, was born. He thought that I'd be good at the promoting thing. Like it was just a natural segue. Now, here is the moment where I wish I could just simply push play so that you could see, or hear all that happened. But I can't do that. There is so much to share in that space. But I do understand that everything happened the way it had to happen for me to get here. I'll just tell you that promoting wasn't enough for me. And I was promoting at the larger clubs. Like how I even got into those spaces with no background in that thing, I don't know. But I was there, and I realized very quickly that promoting wasn't not enough. That was only a percentage of a thing, and the rah-rah in me was going to need all of it. So my mind had started to shift to owning my own venues. And I not only owned my own venues, I owned multiple venues. Then I formed an all-girl promotion team. I paid for photos. I launched a magazine to showcase them. I mean, you get my point, right? I got a lot of rah-rah in me. I was even in the midst of taping a reality show about club/bar life and the owners and the teams that supported them. And I was going to call it Bar Wars. Although I'd been saved since I was 12, I was not waking up with my mind set on Jesus at this point. Now, there are several things that I could speak to in this space, and I'm sure the Holy Spirit will direct me back to this space when it's appropriate, if it's appropriate. But today, I want to tell you that there's nothing wrong with having a little rah-rah. And I think I'm going to say that again. There's nothing wrong with having a little rah-rah. There's nothing wrong with having a lot of rah-rah. The trouble is where we use the rah-rah. As I began this transformation, I mentioned earlier that I wanted to work as hard for the Lord as I did for other things. See, I went into this working with the spirit of excellence for all of what I just mentioned to you, because that's how God formed me in my mother's womb. He put that rah-rah in me, but he intended it to be used for him. He broke it down to me one day out of the blue. I wasn't thinking about anything in particular, and I got like a slideshow in my head of how hard I went for that bar life, that club life. Like, who forms their own promotion team? You've been in this business for 2 days and you got what's going on with that? Who launches magazines? Like, who did I think I was launching a magazine? The people that I pulled, these were people who most were undiscovered, if you will. And they took off doing their own things after I had discovered them. Like, who am I to discover anybody? I was a brand ambassador for several liquor companies, but now I'm an ambassador for God. Like, look at God. What is that all about? But you have to have some rah-rah for that to work. I heard one day in my head, this is what you do with what I gave you? You see, I had began to understand that I had a little something special on my approach. My approach wasn't ordinary. That's why I stood out. I turned what should have been like a project or a passing thing into a career. That's what rah-rah does. It goes deeper. It goes beyond. It's all in. The truth is that this is where my gifts are. A few of them anyway. Creating something out of nothing, creating innovative solutions, going further than most would with the same vision, engaging people and making them feel welcomed and appreciated. Those are gifts. But back then I was using my gifts for myself and for the world. I'd redeemed my gifts that God gave me unwisely. I wasn't being a good steward. My mind was not set on Jesus. I walked away from all of that almost 9 years ago, never looking back, never regretting doing so, not even with the fact that I had no income. I literally had to wait 8 months before I found employment. My dry bones were dry. My dry bone season was real dry. God stripped me down. And I know that because of that extra rah-rah in me, I had to be stripped differently. My season would have to last longer. It'd have to be on another level. That's the only way I'd learn to seek God. The level of dryness, if you will, is what my rah-rah was going to respond to. Saying that God dealt with me during this season is such an understatement. He said, I'm going to leave the rah-rah in you because I need it in you. I know who you are. I created you. I have plans for you and your rah-rah. So guess who's waking up with her mind set on Jesus? I remember hearing my grandmother sing this song all the time, but what does that mean, right? I love the way Tracy Moore describes it. It's about staying aware of his presence and occupying our thoughts of him. This leaves no place for the devil, no place for anything that's not of him. She calls it losing God consciousness. I think that's particularly cute because I often say that some folks go in and out of consciousness without even knowing it. So I completely understand the idea of losing God consciousness, and that's what I've done. This podcast is my gift to the Lord. He's been so good to me. This season alone gives you enough to know that he's not playing about me. And for that reason, I'm not playing about him either. So serving wouldn't be enough. My serve has to match my rah-rah. And when I'm tired, I have to remind myself of the days that I applied all that good rah-rah, all that good energy to the world and not to the Savior of the world. I'm focused on him and I can't disconnect portions of my life. I'm all in. This is where the clothing and the jewelry line comes from. It's my commitment to be in alignment with the will of God, but it's personal. The will he has for my life, alignment, period. Nothing else will do. And I'll tell you something, whenever I catch the clock with like 111 or 444 or any repetitive number like that, 222, whatever, I tell the Lord that I love him. I started out doing this because I didn't want to confuse myself with anything that was not of him, like the angel numbers or someone saying this represents. I didn't want that. Instead, I wanted just to say, I see you, Lord. I am aware of your presence. I'd already started to tell the Lord I loved him when I woke up every day. But we know that hearing I love you more than one time a day is good, right? We know this. So one day I realized that I told him that I loved him nearly every hour of my workday. It made me smile, but I also began to think about how limited that was. Now, of course, I'm not saying that I limited my I love yous to only when the time displayed on the clock 111, 444, 222, 12. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it had occurred to me that the highest count I could get to was 1212. And that made me, a little sad. It's just like, wow. And then I heard that if I stay in God consciousness, there's always a time to say I love you. Now, again, I don't mean that I'd ever only say it during those times. But the max, you understand what I'm saying? That maxing at 12:12 was a little sad for me. But this just made me consider that 113 is really 13:13 in military time, right? 2:14 is really 14:14 in military time. So I've already expanded my window of I love yous just because I was conscious. I was in God consciousness. You following me with that part? When your mind is set on Jesus, there's always a reason to say, I love you. And because he's sovereign, he knows all there is to know about you, including the things that you haven't claimed for yourself yet. He knows all about the rah-rah because he put it there. He created you for his glory, not the world's. Now, who am I speaking to today? In this season, I was faced with a lot of things on my plate all at the same time and wanting to max each of those projects to the fullest. I had distractions challenging me about whether I should really be doing all of these things. In my breakthroughs, I was reminded that faith comes by hearing. So today I want to tell you, I want you to hear this, that my heart's desire wasn't always in this place. It wasn't always to serve the Lord, and certainly not at this capacity. I had to ask him to make my heart's desire match his will for my life. It didn't happen overnight, but I asked over and over again, and then I watched the transformation happen day by day, moment by moment. I've been blessed to have feedback from you and your messages regarding how my stories blessed you, blesses me. And when I'd hear those messages, who are they responding to? It's just me in my life. I'd hear a voice saying, if they only knew. But I knew that was the enemy trying to silence what I was doing here, right? I needed to share with you what has happened, what is happening, even the ugly parts, because knowing only enhances the testimony. The enemy will try to use your past to cripple you, to stagnate you, to quiet you. But there are a lot of us with similar journeys. And it's good for us to hear that, especially when you see God moving through their lives. And anyone watching me from the outside looking in may think that this is where I was all the time. And I need to tell you, no. If he uses me, and I know that he can use anyone. That's facts. Please don't get discouraged about your past, or even if you've not yet understood your personal purpose yet. I promise that if you set your mind on Jesus, the times will be revealed to you. I know there's a lot of rah-rahs out there. Let's use it to glorify the Lord. Please share your thoughts with me, and I can't wait to talk with you soon.